Hey, and welcome to the podcast The Hate-Free Diary, which is created as a final project of the training course Combating Hate's Journey for youth workers. My name is Victoria, I'm a youth worker from Latvia, and I will be the host for this podcast dedicated to hate speech in the modern world. So today, you're going to learn more about how to deal with hate speech both in your professional career and in your daily life. Together with my colleagues from Northern Ireland, Germany, and Latvia, we will cover topics such as the definition of hate speech, examples from our homelands, consequences that hate speech can lead to, and useful tools to solve this issue. So, how widespread is the problem? According to the Council of Foreign Relations, incidents connected with hate speech have been reported on nearly every continent. Much of the world now communicates on social media, which also has an impact on the spread of hate speech. As more and more people have moved online, experts say that individuals inclined toward racism, misogyny, or homophobia have found niches that can reinforce their views and goad them to violence. But what exactly is defined as a hate speech, and how is this connected to the freedom of speech? These questions are going to be answered by Fergal, a youth worker from Northern Ireland. Fergal?
Let's begin by putting hate speech into context. Hate speech is one form of hate crime. Yet in Northern Ireland, there is no specific offence of hate crime. According to the Police Service of Northern Ireland, hate crime is a crime against a person because of their race, religious belief, sexual orientation, political opinion, gender identity, or disability. Hate crime has many forms, from bullying and name-calling, damage to property, violent attacks, and even hate mail or hate email. According to the Public Prosecution Service in Northern Ireland, it is something that violates the dignity and equal treatment of members of the community in Northern Ireland.
Thank you, Fergal. Now, when we finally got the idea of what hate speech actually is, let's move on to some examples from real life and what they teach us. I'm glad to introduce my colleague from Latvia, Lisa, who also works as a youth worker and is going to tell us more about the real case from her homeland. Hi, Lisa.
Thank you, Victoria. My name is Lisa and I'm a volunteer of Latvian charity organization that helps orphans and kids with disability or from vulnerable families. I also take part in Latvian University Student Council and help our international students in their process of adjustment. The most common type of hate speech in Latvia among young people is cyberbullying. Hate speech most often takes place on the internet on various portals, especially in the form of comments. The information provided in the media makes people want to express themselves, but many have no idea that only expressing their opinion and comment can have consequences. Information on the internet about a recent event, a referendum on the second state language, is a clear example that has sparked heated discussions between Latvian and Russian nationalities. Causing national hatred is criminalized. The only difference being that many don't know the borders where to stop. Hate speech is a form of expression that not only offends the dignity of other people, but can also have far-reaching consequences, divide society, or in extreme cases, lead to violence. Also nowadays is highly widespread hate speech to LGBT community. Latvian Center of Human Rights and LGBT and their Friends Association, Mozaika, sent 161 and 124 reports on hateful content, which mostly is publicated on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. Most recently, a popular blogger publicly spoke out against LGBT community. I am categorically against it. God didn't create us. A woman must be with a man and a man with a woman. She's convinced. This caused a lot of criticism in her address and unsubscribes from the account. Many influencers expressed their support for the LGBT society, but there were also those who supported the blogger. There are also legislative barriers that prevent people from receiving equal state support, difficulties in accessing education and poorer job opportunities, as well as healthcare problems for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex people. The third significant problem of hate speech in Latvia is attitudes towards immigrants, foreign students, and workers of the third world countries. In general, the immigration policy implemented by Latvia can be assessed as not promoting immigration. Although the number of immigrants in Latvia is relatively small, this small number of immigrants also faces many and various obstacles that hinder successful integration into Latvian society. Young international students suffer from these factors. It is difficult for them to make acquaintances with local people, ask for help and support, successfully study and find a job. The key question is how to make the fight against hate speech more effective, mainly by educating the public through information, measures, and explaining why this form of expression is not acceptable in a democratic society, and why discrimination and differential treatment are fundamentally prohibited. People are also often unaware of the boundaries between forms of freedom of expression and the actual incitement to hatred that is already punishable. Closer cooperation between everyone, web portals, law enforcement agencies, policymakers, and NGOs is needed to ensure their measures and promote tolerance. Public awareness should be raised that such practices are punishable and that people on the internet are not anonymous.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's get to know the situation with hate speech in other European countries. Yunus, the primary school teacher based in Berlin, is going to share his knowledge about Germany. Hi, Yunus.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you for having me. Just some words about myself before I answer your questions. My name is Yunus Gündoğdu, and I'm an anti-violence trainer and primary school teacher here in Berlin. Indeed, most of my clients are dealing or are directly affected by hate speech. According to the German No Hate Speech website, the main victims of hate speech and discrimination are Jews, Muslims, Sinti and Roma, refugees, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, and women. I also want to add that anti-black racism and racism against people of color are serious problems here. Although they don't occur on the No Hate Speech website separately. But let's shift to my first association with current hate speech in Germany. It is indeed the city of Hanau. Last year, 9 persons of color were shot and killed by a white supremacist named Tobias Radjen in Hanau. He himself was radicalized by online hate speech and managed a website and various profiles and video channels, including on YouTube, where he shared his bias and hatred against Jews, Muslims, black people, refugees, and women. And he did this long before he shot and killed 9 persons of color. Let's check what the current numbers here in Germany teach us. According to the German federal government, there were only between July and September 2020 144 hate crimes daily. I mean per day, against Muslims, mosques, or places and people who are associated with Islam. And that's a serious problem. It's important that German police is able to gain the trust of the affected minorities here. The reason why I'm emphasizing this is because, according to research of the Muslimrat München in Munich, only 12% of anti-Muslim racism was reported here to the police. That means that the numbers are even higher than we assume.
Thank you, Yunus. Now, Fergal will tell us about the hate speech situation in Northern Ireland. Go on, Fergal.
Given the history of political violence in Ireland, and more specifically Northern Ireland, there have been countless examples of hate crime before the term hate crime was even coined. This was normally on the basis of religion or political beliefs, but in recent years we have seen that evolve to include those that would be considered as minority groups, be that of colour of skin, ethnicity, nationality, sexual preferences, or gender. In Northern Ireland, the expression "sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me" is a tradition that children were taught. But as we have evolved as a species, we have begun to reflect upon this approach. There is an acknowledgement that words do hurt, words cause distress, and words are dangerous. The Democratic Unionist MP, Ian Paisley, founder of the Free Presbyterian Church, was staunchly British, loyal to the British monarchy, and was pro-union with Great Britain. In later years, he would sit in government as First Minister with what could be described as his arch nemesis, Sinn Féin leader Martin McGuinness, who was everything Ian Paisley wasn't. Catholic, Republican, a former member of the IRA, an anti-monarchist, anti-British, and fought for a united Ireland. Ian Paisley was famous for his fiery rhetoric, and had there been hate crime law in place from the 1960s onwards, would no doubt have fallen foul of the law. He once described the Roman Catholic Church as the whore of Babylon, and Pope John Paul II as the Antichrist. The problem with his rhetoric in years gone by was that many people stood behind him and engaged in acts of violence, be that in word or deed. When he ended up making peace with his enemies in order to form a power-sharing government in Northern Ireland, many saw this as betraying the very cause that he had espoused and was fighting for. Just in the same way that Donald Trump was accused of recently firing up his followers to attack the Capitol in Washington and then denouncing them in the chaos after it. The consequences of this in Northern Ireland is that there have been countless examples of fiery rhetoric, and some have taken it as a green light to perpetrate acts of violence against those they see different to themselves. The good news is that an independent review into hate crime legislation in Northern Ireland was published on the 1st of December 2020. Once legislation is introduced, it should mean that Northern Ireland has arguably the most up-to-date hate crime legislation in the UK. Until it becomes law, those opposed to hate crimes in all its forms will have to continue to raise awareness of it, challenge its perpetrators, and most importantly, raise consciousness among the public that behaviours that were once acceptable are no longer.
Thank you for sharing, Fergal. Now, when we know that the issue of hate speech is widespread and significant for our future, it's time to listen about the solutions and tools youth workers can use to deal with hate speech. Yunus, please share with us.
I won't be able to present a perfect fitting solution, but I can provide some approaches and tools how one can deal with or address hate speech in schools or on the internet. I want to start with the website of the No Hate Speech movement, which is also available in German. It's a very good platform to inform yourself about hate speech and its different forms. The website also informs you about projects and institutions which can support you when you are affected by hate speech. In Germany, for instance, we have the Antidiskriminierungsstelle des Bundes, where you can report hate speech and receive counseling via email or telephone. Projects like Insan or the Anti-Discrimination Network of the Turkish Union in Berlin also offer the same options and also do help you with finding a lawyer, for example. If you are a youth worker or a teacher and want to make hate speech a subject of discussion, I absolutely recommend you to contact local experts. Here in Berlin, we have a lot of projects offering school workshops to increase children and adults' awareness on hate speech. Please go for it.
Thank you, Yunus. We have come to the end of this podcast. I hope you found something useful for yourself and your work too. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. Bye.